The campus started in 1960. Normandy bought the Belle Country Club from Belle and established what they call the Normandy Residence Center. By 1963, University of Missouri in Columbia acquired the Normandy Residence Center. In St. Louis, we were starting from scratch, so we had the country club building and nothing else.
Jim Bugg was, in my view, the only man that could have put this place together. He was tough as nails, wrong often, but tough. He and I were at odds on a lot of things that were happening here in the early years. But he had to be tough to succeed. And, you know, we're having classes in the old golf shop, and people sitting on steps with typewriters on their laps, all that kind of stuff. And he made it go.
I remember sitting in the entrance hall waiting for my interview with various companies and universities. This guy with a flat top haircut walked through, looked like a football player. I noticed him because he looked different from most of the other people. When it was my turn to go into interview, I interviewed with this fellow. It's Charlie Armbruster, a very charismatic character, talked about this brand new institution that he'd helped establish. And I don't think I would have come here had it not been for Charlie Armbruster. He was so positive. He was so absolutely positive and enthusiastic, and it was a sort of a talisman. He had been for a long time.
Yeah, the question that I had was, do you want to go to a larger, more established institution and become kind of a small cog on a big wheel, or might I take a chance on this new university that was starting in Normandy and maybe see some of my ideas come to fruition? And so I decided on the latter. I've never had any regrets about it. It's been a very, very rewarding experience over the last 44 years.
I got grades good enough that I was able to get into the University of Missouri at Columbia, where I attended for a year. Wasn't able to afford both the tuition and staying away from, living away from home. So I came back, moved in with my parents, and went to school at the University of Missouri St. Louis.
I graduated from high school, from Normandy High School in '63. And I went away to school for one semester to Drury College in Springfield, Missouri. Well, it didn't take me very long to figure out that I really didn't like being away from home after all. And so at the end of the semester, I was ready to come back. I couldn't get into Washington U in the middle, and so I came here. And then I kind of liked it. I really liked the classes.
We had enormous classes. Charlie organized science, but chemistry sort of came first, and then biology, then physics. And the first semester, Dave Garin, who shared an office with me, who taught the majors chemistry course, had a class of about 415, and I had a class of about 375 students. It was a pretty drastic introduction to academia, presenting, being faced with such a large number of students in first classes.
The main building on campus was the old clubhouse that, that had been, the clubhouse for the Belle Country Club. There were zero amenities. I mean, there was no cafeteria. Literally, the only food available was out of machines. I mean, the library was in what had been the dining hall of the country club.
There was scaffolding on the inside of Benton Hall, which was the only new building on the campus. They had opened the building before it was complete because the organic chemistry students had to take organic chemistry. And there were still remnants of the golf course. In fact, during my first or second year, I recall they had one of the holes was still complete, a par 3. It had a closest to the pin contest, and I came in second, I think.
Well, one building just wasn't holding it. We were using the church basement across the street, the Presbyterian church diagonally across the street from Woods Hall. We were renting a storefront down the street on Natural Bridge right next to a laundromat, so students refer to themselves going to class at the laundromat. And, but, we made do. It was, in those days, it was very, very primitive.
The occupied space of this campus at that time was so tiny that it was, a village that grew into a city.
Bug did a very good thing. Edwardsville campus, Edwardsville started about the same time. They had millions of dollars for buildings, and they built them. We had no buildings, but he spent the money on faculty, and he was right to do it.
There were a lot of faculty who found this to be a real opportunity to come. Some of them in the beginning came from Mizzou because they would rather live in St. Louis than live in Columbia, Missouri. Thank you.
Amstel, I think, probably attracted more than its fair share of good people because there was an opportunity here. We have some really excellent people that have been here, especially in those very early years. And they stayed, Terry Jones and Peter Wolf and Dick Mitchell. Well, you were getting into something from the beginning. It was new, you know, sort of exciting. I mean, we were building a university.
And you know, you have to remember, these were folks that were recruited here, and they knew where they were coming. They'd look at the campus, and they knew where, you know, they knew what they were coming into, and I think they came in with their, not only their eyes open, but sort of anticipating or appreciating sort of the you know, informality and intimacy of the campus.
The second year I was here, they started the history department. And it was Blanche Tuhill and I, and Lyle Dorset. And then in that first year, I hired Susan Hartman, Dick Resch, and Arthur Schaefer. Anyway, they were good teachers, all of them.
Professors, for the most part, weren't that much older than the students. I mean, you know, this was a young university. There were assistant professors here that were 23 and 24 years old.
I think anybody who ever majored in English when Bill Hamlin was here would remember him because he was such an actor along with teaching the stuff, you know. And some of them, when they would read passages, you know, it just all became so real.
If you were a graduate student wanting to take notes for your PhD exam, Hartman's the one you wanted, because that's the kind of lecture she gave. Schaefer, totally different. You couldn't find him in the classroom. I mean, he's all over the room. And I thought, there's a scholar thinking out loud.
Everybody knew everybody. You know, the chancellor knew everybody's name.
And it was a smaller place, and you had younger assistant professors, younger professors, and you had some older students as well. I mean, we had students in their early 30s who were coming back to school. They'd gone. Some of them had been to Vietnam. Some of them had been in the Army.
And a lot of them were women with families who were just coming back. This was sort of their first chance at a college education, probably something they always wanted to do, but they got married young, they had kids.
Some of the best students I ever had here came out of the, one of them was a head mechanic in an automobile factory. He decided to get a master's in history. I never had a better student in my life than he was. That was one of the things, interesting things about the early years.
Lots of people were working full-time and going to school full-time. And, you know, so some of them were attending school during the day and working at nights. It was a real Duke's mixture.
There were a lot of brilliant people who never would have gone to college if UMSL hadn't been started. And I don't know how many people told me it's the only chance I had to go to four-year college. I used to make the point, the day the Harvard graduate and the Amstel graduate enter a graduate course, they start even.
Oh, well, I always say that, you know, this job, this career that I've had has been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. You know, you're dealing with students, young people, and you're teaching them, helping them, advising them, and getting to know them. And I've got to know many, many generations of students. And I think the most satisfying thing is to see them do well. That's really what turns me on. And when people tell me that they appreciate what I did, that's really, that's wonderful, I think. And this place has been my vocation, you know. It's not just a job, it's a life. And pretty good life, too.